Commander Kim stood tall on the gleaming platform, her Earth military uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes and biomechanical suits of the alien representatives. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Concord stretched before her, a massive dome with seats arranged in rising tiers, filled with beings from 100 different worlds. "Thank you for this opportunity," Kim said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. This was humanity's big moment, their first real chance to prove themselves worthy of joining the galactic community as equals. Behind her, a holographic display showed Earth's military history, from ancient battles with swords and shields to modern combat drones and orbital platforms. Kim had spent weeks preparing this presentation, carefully selecting examples that showcased human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage under fire. As you can see, Earth forces have mastered adaptation across varied terrains: desert warfare, Arctic combat, urban conflicts, and jungle operations, she explained, advancing through her carefully prepared slides. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. At first, Kim thought it might be appreciation, until she realized the sound was laughter. Actual laughter. Dae-hyun, Earth's civilian ambassador, shifted uncomfortably beside her. "Commander," he whispered, "perhaps we should move to the technology section." But it was too late. The Thalaxian representative, Admiral Vorks, rose from his seat. His tall, slender frame and blue-tinged skin seemed to shimmer under the chamber lights as he addressed the council. "How quaint," he said, mandibles clicking in what Kim now recognized as their version of amusement. "The humans believe throwing projectiles and hiding behind terrain features constitutes warfare." His translator produced perfect English, but the condescension needed no translation. He gestured casually, and the main display changed to show a Thalaxian battlecruiser firing energy weapons at targets millions of kilometers away. This is modern warfare. Battles calculated to mathematical precision, fought across the void of space, won before the enemy even realizes they've been engaged. More laughter filled the chamber. Kim tried again. "With respect, Admiral, human forces have always excelled at overcoming technological gaps through tactics and tactics," interrupted a bulbous green diplomat from the Mertzoid Federation. "Your species still puts soft bodies on battlefields. We've used drone swarms for 4 centuries. The Iridian representative joined in. "They don't even have neural interfaces. Their soldiers communicate with sound waves." This brought the loudest laugh yet. Kim felt her face burning. These weren't just dismissals. They were seeing humans as primitives playing at war, children showing off stick drawings to master artists. Admiral Vorks raised a 4-fingered hand to quiet the chamber. "Commander Kim, your enthusiasm is admirable. But understand the Concord faces threats you cannot comprehend. The Draxis Armada, the Void Collective, the Quantum Disciples, these require real military power. Your species would be slaughtered in seconds." "We've faced overwhelming odds before," Kim said, struggling to maintain her composure. "Not like this," Vorks replied, with what almost seemed like pity. "Your people still fight using 3 dimensions and linear time. It's like watching cave dwellers with pointed sticks." The Concord Council voted unanimously to classify Earth as a protected developing world, a patronizing status that offered security but denied humans any military role in galactic affairs. Back on the transport ship heading home, Kim sat silently, staring at her reflection in the viewport as stars streaked by. Dae-hyun approached cautiously. "That could have gone better," he offered, sliding into the seat across from her. Kim nodded, her jaw tight. "They think we're jokes, primitives. The Thalaxians have been the dominant military force for 8,000 years, Dae-hyun reminded her. They've forgotten what it means to fight without their technology. Something in his words sparked an idea in Kim's mind. "That might be their weakness," she said slowly. "They've forgotten the basics." Kim pulled out her tablet and began writing a proposal to Earth's United Defense Command. If the Concord wouldn't accept humans as equals, perhaps they needed a demonstration of what primitive warfare could accomplish. "What are you thinking?" Dae-hyun asked, noticing the renewed energy in her movements. "I'm thinking it's time to assemble a team," Kim replied, her fingers flying across the screen. Not scientists or diplomats, soldiers, real veterans who understand. That fancy technology isn't everything. As the ship approached Earth, Kim looked out at the blue-green planet with new determination. The galaxy had laughed at human warfare today, but they wouldn't be laughing for long. Sometimes the old ways, the hard ways, were exactly what was needed when everything else failed, and Kim knew just the people to prove it. 3 months after Earth's humiliation at the Galactic Concorde, Commander Kim sat in her office at the United Defense Command headquarters, still smarting from the memory. Her proposal for a specialized human combat unit had been approved but shelved. No one was particularly eager to waste resources on a project the aliens had already dismissed. Then the emergency broadcast came through. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a Thalaxian officer whose usual composure had vanished. Static interrupted the transmission, but the message was clear enough. Under attack. Unprecedented. Vespid Horde has breached, requesting all available. Kim leaned forward, watching as the feed showed glimpses of the battle. Massive insectoid ships tore through the Concorde's defense fleet like paper. The precision weapons of the Thalaxians seemed ineffective against the chaotic, swarming patterns of the attackers. "Play that section again," Kim ordered the computer. She watched closely as the Vespid ships ignored conventional attack formations, seeming to move almost randomly, yet with purpose. Her communicator chimed. "Commander, urgent message from Ambassador Dae-hyun." Within the hour, Kim found herself in an emergency briefing with Earth's highest military officials. Ambassador Dae-hyun's face was grim on the main screen. "The Vespid Horde has attacked 7 Concorde worlds simultaneously," he reported. "The Thalaxians have lost 3 battle fleets. They've never encountered anything like this." General Han, the grizzled head of Earth's defense force, frowned. "And what does this have to do with us? The high and mighty Concorde made it clear we're just primitive cave people." "They're asking for our help," Dae-hyun said quietly. The room fell silent. "Our help?" Kim repeated, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. "Yes." The Concorde's formal request arrived an hour ago. "They want to speak with you specifically, Commander Kim." 2 days later, Kim stood in the same council chamber that had once echoed with laughter at her expense. Now the mood was solemn. Many seats stood empty, their representatives lost in the initial Vespid assault. Admiral Vaux looked significantly less impressive than during their first meeting. His uniform was rumpled, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. "The Vespid Horde appeared from the galactic rim," he explained, bringing up tactical displays. "They use no known communication methods. Their ships move in patterns are predictive. Algorithms cannot anticipate. Our weapons target where Vespid vessels should be, based on logical battle doctrine, but they're never there." "They're using guerrilla tactics," Kim said, studying the displays. "Hit and run, asymmetric warfare, fighting from positions of apparent weakness to confuse a stronger enemy." "Impossible," another Concorde official objected. "No advanced civilization would resort to such primitive approaches." Kim almost smiled. "On Earth, we never stopped using those approaches. They work." Back on Earth, Commander Kim moved quickly. Her previously ignored proposal was now top priority. She had 3 weeks to assemble a team and develop a strategy before the Vespid reached the next cluster of inhabited systems. "I need the best," she told General Han. "Not the highest ranking or most decorated, the ones who think differently, who've survived when they shouldn't have." Her first recruit was Park, a former Special Forces operator who had survived 2 weeks behind enemy lines during the Amazon conflict, taking out 17 enemy positions with just a knife and improvised explosives. Next came Lee, an urban combat specialist who had revolutionized city fighting tactics during the Singapore siege, using the 3-dimensional nature of skyscrapers to outmaneuver a technologically superior force. The third was Choi, a master of psychological warfare who had once convinced an entire enemy battalion to surrender without firing a shot, simply by manipulating their communication networks. "This is it?" Admiral Vaux asked when introduced to the small team at Earth's lunar base. 3 humans against the Vespid Horde?" "No," Kim corrected. "These 3 will help develop the strategy and train your forces. We fight smart, not just with numbers. In the base's main hangar, Kim showed her team the first captured Vespid drone ship. The insectoid craft was unlike anything in the Concorde fleet, organic-looking, asymmetrical, with strange protrusions and seemingly random design elements. Park circled the ship slowly, then looked up with a spark of recognition. It's like the fire ant colonies in Brazil. They don't follow predictable patterns, but they're not random either. Lee nodded, excitement building. Emergent behavior, each unit following simple rules that create complex, unpredictable patterns as a group. Just like the tribal insurgencies in the Western Desert, Choi added. No central command to target. Distributed. Intelligence. For the first time since the Vespid appeared, hope flickered in Admiral Vaux's eyes. You've seen this before? Kim nodded. Many times, in many forms. You've been fighting like machines. Predictable, programmed, perfect. The Vespid. Fight like insects, chaotic, adaptive, overwhelming. We humans. She smiled slightly. We've learned to fight like both when needed, and against the Vespid we'll teach you how to fight like humans. As the team began their work, analyzing Vespid battle footage and developing countermeasures, a strange feeling spread through the base. The aliens who had laughed at humans were now watching them intently, some with skepticism, others with growing respect. Earth's moment had arrived, born from the most unexpected quarter. The galaxy had dismissed human warfare as primitive. Now, they would see just how effective primitive could be. The command center beneath Earth's lunar base hummed with activity. Holographic displays showed Vespid attack patterns, while Concorde officers watched in confusion as Kim's team worked in what seemed like chaos. Park had taken over an entire wall, plastering it with printed images, actual physical printouts that baffled the digital-dependent aliens. He connected different Vespid maneuvers with red string, creating a web that made sense only to him. "What is he doing?" Admiral Vaux whispered to Kim. "Your military still uses paper." "Sometimes the oldest. Tools are best for new problems," Kim replied. "Park sees patterns differently when they're physical, not digital." Across the room, Lee had dismantled a Vespid drone part and was comparing it to Earth historical weapons. Choi sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, surrounded by audio recordings of Vespid communication signals playing simultaneously. "This looks disorganized," Vaux observed with obvious disapproval. "It's not disorganized," Kim corrected. "It's human. We don't all process information the same way. Uniformity breeds predictability. Exactly what the Vespid exploit in your forces." 3 days into their analysis, the breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. Park burst into the main briefing room where Kim was meeting with Concorde strategists. "Commander, look at this," he said, spreading combat footage across the table. "The Vespid aren't just using insect swarming patterns. They're using human guerrilla tactics, old ones, from Earth's history." The room fell silent as Park explained. He showed footage of Vespid ships creating diversionary attacks before striking elsewhere, just like the Viet Cong had done centuries earlier. Other maneuvers mirrored Bedouin desert raids, Maori ambush techniques, and even ancient Roman flanking tactics. "They've studied us," Kim realized. While the Concorde was dismissing human warfare as primitive, the Vespid were learning from it. Lee nodded excitedly. "That's why the Concorde can't counter them. You've forgotten these lessons. Your warfare became too clean, too predictable, too civilized." "War isn't civilized," Park added quietly. "It never has been." Admiral Vaux's mandibles clicked rapidly, his species equivalent of deep thought. "If they've adopted human tactics, then humans would know best how to counter them." "Exactly," Kim said. "And we have something they don't. Thousands of years of adapting these very tactics against each other. Humans have been fighting humans longer than most Concorde species have been spacefaring." The plan came together quickly after that. Kim's team began training mixed squads of humans and aliens in what they called adaptive combat doctrine. The approach shocked the Concorde officers. "You want us to make decisions without central command approval?" a Thalaxian captain asked in disbelief during training. "Yes," Choi explained patiently. "If all your moves must be approved, you become predictable. Each squad leader needs authority to adapt in the moment." But that invites chaos, the captain protested. It creates controlled chaos, Choi corrected. Your enemy thrives on patterns. Break your own patterns. In the combat simulator, Lee introduced concepts that had been second nature to human soldiers for centuries, but were revolutionary to the Concord forces. Terrain isn't just an obstacle, it's a weapon, he explained, showing how to use natural features for ambush positions. The Vespid expect you to avoid difficult environments, so we'll use those environments against them. The Iridian troops, with their multiple limbs and climbing abilities, took to these lessons eagerly. The methane-breathing Kaltari, with their natural camouflage abilities, excelled at the stealth training. Park focused on improvisation, teaching soldiers to use whatever was available rather than relying only on standard equipment. He demonstrated how simple tools could disable complex Vespid technology, just as guerrilla fighters throughout Earth's history had taken down superior forces with improvised weapons. This shuttle maintenance tool can jam their sensory apparatus. He showed a group of fascinated alien engineers. Their technology is advanced, but not adaptable. They don't expect you to go off script. Admiral Vorks watched these training sessions with growing interest. After one particularly successful simulation, where a mixed human-alien squad destroyed a Vespid hive ship using mining explosives and decoy transmitters, he approached Kim. "Your species has a strange relationship with warfare," he observed. "You clearly hate it, yet you understand it more intimately than any Concord race." "We understand it because we hate it," Kim replied. "We've been trying to end wars since we started fighting them. That means understanding them completely." As training progressed, something unexpected happened. The various alien species, normally segregated by Concord protocol, began integrating their unique abilities. Thalaxian precision combined with human adaptability. Iridian climbing skills paired with Kaltari camouflage techniques. Their bonding, Choi noted with satisfaction, sharing meals, exchanging stories about battles. Kim nodded. That's the final element the Concord was missing. Technology and tactics matter, but warfare has always been about the people fighting. Morale, brotherhood, the will to protect each other. 1 month after Kim's team began their work, the first mixed combat unit was ready for deployment. The soldiers, human and alien alike, had transformed. Gone was the rigid Concord precision replaced by a fluid confidence. They still used advanced technology, but now with human ingenuity behind it. As the troops boarded their ships, Admiral Vorks approached Kim one last time. "I was wrong about humans," he admitted. "What I saw as primitive was actually foundational. You've returned to us something we lost in our advancement." Kim watched the ships depart, carrying the first true human-alien fighting force in galactic history. "The Vespid thought they could use human tactics against the galaxy," she said quietly. "But they forgot something important. No one understands human warfare better than humans, and we've been trying to defeat our own tactics for thousands of years." The command ship Resilience hung in orbit above Nebulan Prime, once a gleaming jewel of Concord civilization, now overrun by the Vespid horde. From the observation deck, Kim watched the planet's night side, where city lights should have glowed. Instead, only scattered fires punctuated the darkness. "All units report ready, Commander," said John, the former Special Forces operator Kim had personally selected to lead the ground assault. His weathered face showed no fear, only focused determination. "Operation Thunderstrike begins in 30 minutes, Kim acknowledged. "Is everyone clear on the approach?" Admiral Vorks nodded, though tension showed in his rigid posture. "Clear, but concerned. Dividing our forces goes against every principle of Concord military doctrine." "Which is exactly why the Vespid won't expect it," Kim replied. The plan was unlike anything the Concord had attempted before. Instead of a massive, coordinated attack with overwhelming firepower, their standard approach, they would deploy multiple small teams with different objectives. Some would create diversions, others would gather intelligence, while the main strike teams would hit targets of opportunity. No central command would micromanage their movements. Each unit had clear objectives, but full authority to adapt as needed. The Vespid have established their primary hive in the capital city, Kim explained, pointing to the tactical display. But we're not going to attack it directly, not yet. Instead, human-led teams would establish a presence in the surrounding countryside, working with local resistance fighters who had survived the initial invasion. They would use the forests and mountains, terrain the Vespid found difficult to navigate, as their base of operations. First rule of asymmetric warfare, John told his mixed squad of humans and aliens as they prepared to drop. Never fight the enemy where they're strongest. Make them come to you on your terms. The dropships launched under cover of darkness, using minimal power to avoid detection. They scattered across the planet's surface like seeds in the wind, deliberate randomness that confounded Vespid sensors designed to detect patterns. Park led the first team to make contact with the resistance, a ragtag group of Nebulan civilians and stranded Concord soldiers hiding in an abandoned mining complex. Their faces lit up with hope at the sight of the human-led reinforcements. "We thought the Concord had abandoned us," said a thin Nebulan engineer who had become the group's de facto leader. "We're not the Concord," Park replied with a grim smile. "We're something new." Within days, the human approach began showing results. Small victories accumulated. A Vespid supply convoy ambushed in a narrow canyon. A communication relay disabled by a team of climbers who approached from a direction the Vespid hadn't bothered to guard. A successful raid that freed hundreds of captives from a processing center. The Vespid responded predictably, sending overwhelming forces to the last known location of each attack, only to find the attackers long gone. Their swarm mentality, so effective against conventional forces, became a weakness. They couldn't resist pursuing bait, couldn't ignore provocations, couldn't adapt quickly to the constantly changing tactics. Lee's urban combat expertise proved invaluable as teams began infiltrating the smaller cities. He taught the alien soldiers to move through the three-dimensional urban landscape in ways the Vespid couldn't anticipate, utilizing sewers, maintenance shafts, and rooftops rather than streets and obvious corridors. "The city isn't just a battlefield," he explained to a mixed group of human and Iridian troops. "It's a weapon if you know how to use it." Under his guidance, they set traps in buildings, created false targets to draw Vespid fire, and used the urban environment to funnel enemy forces into kill zones. 3 weeks into Operation Thunderstrike, the most daring mission yet was launched. John would lead a night raid on Nova City, the second-largest population center on Nebulon Prime. The objective? Liberate the city's central district and establish the first permanent Concord foothold since the invasion. "This isn't about taking and holding territory," John briefed his assault team. "It's about showing the people we can win and showing the Vespid they can lose." The raid began with a series of diversionary attacks on Vespid patrols around the city perimeter. Meanwhile, John's team infiltrated through the water reclamation system, emerging in the heart of enemy-controlled territory. They moved like ghosts through the darkened streets, using tech developed by Choi that masked their heat signatures and scrambled Vespid communication frequencies. When they struck, it was with precise, coordinated violence, targeting the nerve centers of the Vespid occupation. From the command ship, Kim watched tactical displays as green indicators began lighting up across Nova City. Each represented an objective secured. The operation moved faster than even she had hoped, with minimal casualties. "Impossible," Admiral Vaux whispered beside her, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation or excitement. Kim still couldn't quite tell the difference. Air Force 1/10 the size of the enemy, achieving objectives at this rate. "This is what humans do," Kim said simply. "We adapt." By dawn, the impossible had happened. Nova City's central district was secure, the Vespid forces in disarray, retreating to regroup. As the sun rose over the liberated zone, civilians emerged from hiding to see the combined human-alien force standing victorious in the main plaza. Word spread quickly across the planet and beyond. The Vespid could be beaten. The tide was turning. In the days that followed, similar operations launched across Nebulon Prime and 2 other occupied worlds. Each success built momentum. The Vespid, for the first time, seemed confused, their swarming patterns becoming erratic and ineffective against an enemy that refused to follow the expected rules of engagement. On the command ship, Kim received the latest intelligence reports with cautious optimism. The human approach was working, but the real test was yet to come. The Vespid would adapt. All successful species did. The question was whether humans and their new allies could adapt faster. The galaxy laughed at human warfare, Admiral Vorks said, reviewing footage of John's successful Nova City raid. "No one is laughing now," Kim nodded. "We're just getting started." The light of 3 suns bathed the Vespid forward base on Kalthori 3rd in golden rays. What had once been an impenetrable fortress now lay in ruins, smoke rising from multiple breach points. On a ridge overlooking the devastation, Commander Kim stood with Admiral Vorks, watching the final phase of the operation unfold. "Your plan." "Worked," Vorks said, his voice containing something Kim had never heard from a Thalaxian before, genuine awe. Kim shook her head. "Not my plan, our plan." The strategy that led to this decisive victory had evolved over months of fighting across a dozen worlds. Human tactics provided the foundation, but each species in the coalition had contributed their unique perspectives and abilities. The result was something entirely new, a form of warfare neither purely human nor purely alien, but stronger than either alone. The final assault on the Vespid command base had brought together every lesson learned. Park's team had spent weeks gathering intelligence, mapping enemy movements, identifying weaknesses. Lee's urban combat specialists had trained alien troops to use the base's own architecture against the defenders. Choi's psychological warfare tactics had sown confusion among the Vespid, disrupting their hive-mind coordination. And Geon's strike force had executed the final attack with surgical precision, using a combination of stealth technology, improvised, explosives and old-fashioned human courage. "We've captured their queen," reported a breathless communications officer. "Repeat, the Vespid queen is in custody." A cheer went up from the gathered troops, human, Thalaxian, Oridian, and a dozen, other species standing shoulder to shoulder, tentacle to wing. Many bore wounds from the fighting, but their faces shone with the unmistakable light of victory. With their queen captured, the remaining Vespid forces will lose cohesion, Vorks explained. This war is effectively over. 3 days later, Kim found herself back in the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Concord, the same room where humans had been mocked less than a year before. The chamber looked different now, battle damage still visible on one wall, empty seats where representatives had been lost to the Vespid onslaught. But the biggest difference was in how the assembled aliens looked at the humans who stood before them. "Commander Kim," the Concord High Speaker intoned, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "Less than one standard galactic year ago, you came to this chamber to present Earth's military capabilities. Today, you return as the architect of our salvation." Kim stood tall, her team arrayed behind her. Park, Lee, Choi, John, and dozens of other human veterans who had turned the tide of the war. "Not the architect," she corrected gently. "One of many builders. This victory belongs to all who fought, to all who adapted, to all who were willing to set aside old prejudices and learn new ways." The High Speaker nodded, acknowledging the correction. "Nevertheless, the Galactic Concord recognizes that without Earth's intervention, without human military expertise, we would have fallen to the Vespid horde. For this, we owe a debt that cannot be fully repaid." One by one, representatives from worlds that had been liberated from Vespid control came forward to express their gratitude. Some brought gifts, works of art, ancient artifacts, advanced technology freely shared. Others simply offered words, sometimes in their native languages, the emotion transcending the need for translation. Admiral Vorks approached last, standing tall before the assembled council. "I spoke against humans in this chamber," he admitted. "I called their methods primitive, their tactics obsolete. I was wrong." He turned to face Kim and her team directly. "You taught us that warfare is not merely about technology or numbers. It is about spirit, adaptability, and the capacity to evolve. These are qualities humans possess in abundance." The BE formal ceremony concluded with the announcement that shattered millennia of tradition. Earth would be granted a permanent seat on the Concord Military Council, with full voting rights on all matters of galactic security. But for Kim, the true meaning of their victory came later, in a quieter moment. After the ceremony, she walked the grounds of the Concord capital with her team, enjoying a moment of peace after months of constant combat. They passed a training field where young cadets from various species practiced combat maneuvers. "Look," John said, pointing. A group of Thalaxian cadets, traditionally trained in rigid formation fighting, were being instructed by a grizzled human veteran. The lesson appeared to be about improvising weapons from the environment, the old soldier demonstrating how a simple length of cord could become a tripwire, a throwing weapon, or a climbing tool. "They're learning," Park observed with satisfaction, "and teaching," Lee added, nodding toward another field where an Iridian instructor was showing human cadets how to use their species' climbing techniques to scale smooth surfaces. The next day, Kim received her final assignment from Earth Command to establish the first human military academy on a central Concord world. The facility would train the next generation of galactic peacekeepers in the balanced approach that had defeated the Vespid: advanced technology guided by adaptive thinking, formal doctrine enhanced by creative problem-solving. As she toured the site chosen for the academy, a sprawling complex nestled between mountains and sea, Kim reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Having second thoughts?" asked Choi, noticing her pensive expression. "Just thinking about that first day in the council chamber," Kim replied. "How they laughed." Choi smiled. "No one's laughing now." "No," Kim agreed, watching as ships from a dozen worlds arrived, carrying the first class of cadets eager to learn from Earth's veterans. Now they're listening. In the years that followed, the Academy became the most prestigious military institution in the galaxy. Its graduates, human and alien alike, shared a philosophy that transcended species and technology. Adaptability is the true essence of warfare, and respect is earned not through power alone, but through the wisdom to know when and how to use it. The galaxy had indeed laughed at human warfare. Until Earth's veterans entered the battle, they weren't laughing anymore.